Story 1. Day trading. People often talk about how much money they made but rarely disclose how much they lost along the way. Story 2. I'm old. I've had jobs that were incredibly cerebral, requiring security clearance and done in white rooms lined with whiteboards with no natural light. I've had jobs that were mindless repetition and hard physical labor. You know what I've learned? It is never 9 to 5, and whatever it ends up being is always too many hours out of my day. Go home mentally drained, go home physically drained. You sell your time, and personally speaking, no matter what value is placed on it, it has always been a price not worth paying. Story 3. Being a small business owner sounds great, to be the boss, right? You are ultimately responsible for all sales which are necessary to cover payroll, rent, insurance, and all the other bills that must be paid. If you miss any deadlines on these payments, the consequences can be severe. You also have to make sure all your taxes, local, state, and federal, are filed and paid on time. If anything goes wrong with any of this, it is ultimately your fault. Need a loan to cover some of these costs? You will be personally guaranteeing it. The rewards can be large, but so are the risks. Story 4. I started a farm last year. This is an expansion of my cut flower business, which for some reason people thought I just went out, cut flowers, and made a lot of money. People don't seem to understand that I invest thousands every year in seed, corms, bulbs, fuel, fertilizers, insect control, ground fabrics, shade cloths, and netting. I labor in the fields from dawn to dusk from the beginning of May until the end of November. In the winter, I care for a greenhouse, start new plants, make cuttings, create new stakes, and repair anything that needs attention in anticipation of the next season. This is all assuming we don't have an overly wet, dry, hot, or cold season. If I have a good year, I will not lose any money. Story 5. Any job you take just for the money becomes a different kind of job, trying to find meaning in it while constantly battling the urge to quit. Story 6. Teaching. Yes, people are generally aware that teachers are not paid well. Yet I hear all the time that anyone can do it. Summers off is unfair because who needs that? Real professionals do not have unions. You name it. Let me tell you, not everyone can do that. Story 7. Dentistry. People think I'm rolling in money and golfing every day. And yes, I'm doing pretty well, but I'm 38 and my back hurts. I hear people tell me they hate me all day. The business aspect is grueling if you're introverted. And the patient care part is worse when people dump all their years of trauma onto your lap and expect you to fix them quickly, painlessly, and cheaply. Dentists are quick to criticize each other and, even worse, can be overly critical of ourselves for not reaching perfection all the time. I had a child screaming during treatment yesterday, and the mother begged me not to stop because they hadn't slept in 3 days due to an abscessed tooth and no nearby providers accepted Medicaid. The longest 45 minutes ever. We got her the help she needed, but I felt terrible basically forcing this 5-year-old through something traumatic just because her parents didn't take me seriously the last few times I warned them about this tooth. Nobody feels good after that, even if we objectively help them. Story 8. As a gamer, I can say that the majority of us talk as if video games are just teleported into existence, whereas making them is time-consuming and expensive on an almost unfathomable level. I have been an amateur game developer for 20 years and have never made anything to completion. This includes being on teams with others. Even the most trivial aspects of a game can take forever and cause all sorts of issues. Modders also help confuse the issue. A game will come out, and modders will start adding content and fixes while fans criticize the developers as if it should have been easy. Meanwhile, modders never have to worry about the infinite amount of work under the hood, such as security protocols. Most mods are filled with countless bugs and issues of their own. Story 9. Fabrication, welding, assembly, or painting wear on the body. It affects the rotator cuffs. Story 10. Everyone thinks working at a library is a dream job because you can just read all day. You would be surprised how dull the job actually is, and worse than that, how toxic the majority of libraries are. It would take a lot more than $10 an hour for me to ever work in a library again. Story 11. Courier package delivery driver for United Parcel Service, Federal Express, or Amazon. Federal Express was tolerable for me, and I kind of liked it sometimes. Still grunt work. United Parcel Service, though? Forget that. The expectations from management are insane and actually humanly impossible in some situations. There is a lot of harassment. There is a reason the union exists to protect drivers. I commend the drivers who manage it day after day, especially in the hot summers. It can be a path to earn six figures without a college degree if you stick it out a few years. The wear and tear on your body come with that salary. I remember being in the warehouse and seeing the look of absolute dread on many of the drivers' faces as they walked the halls. A tough job for sure. Story 12. Software engineering is not super easy, but many people I met during my degree and after thought they would walk out of school or coding boot camp and make six figures while basically doing for loops and if-else statements. Many people drop out of computer science because it is actually difficult. Story 13. Most trades honestly have great-looking pay out of the gate for some or climb to good pay pretty quickly, but you go home tired most days and it definitely takes a toll on the body. Story 14. Public relations. If I had $1 for every time someone told me that they could do public relations, I could take you all out for a nice lunch. Public relations requires strong writing and persuasive skills, strong research and analytical skills, a thick skin since we are told no every day when we pitch reporters, stress management since our job routinely appears on the top 10 most stressful jobs list. Story 15. Business-to-business enterprise software as a service sales. Good luck getting the development team to implement the non-existent feature you sold. Story 16. Being a server. You can make significant tips and walk away with $300 that night for 7 hours of work. However, those will be the most stressful 7 hours of your entire week. Story 17. Uber cost me $30,000. I thought if I bought a new car, that would be better. The car got stolen and I still had payments. My old clunker would not have had these issues. Insurance went up. It was a mess. Story 18. Letter carrier. Everyone speaks nonsense about postal work until they have to do it. Less than 30% retention in the last 5 years. Story 19. There is a reason doctors are paid what they are. I have been in operating rooms, emergency rooms, intensive care units, pediatric hospitals, and more. Even the most difficult physicians I have met still amaze me. Story 20. Pharmacist. Yes, entry-level pharmacist jobs pay more than $10,000 per month. This comes at the expense of obtaining a doctorate-level education and passing a difficult 5-hour licensure exam, only to be yelled at by patients, talked down to by physicians, frustrated by insurance companies, begging technicians not to call out, and being forced to meet metrics set by a district manager. Story 21. OnlyFans. People think the money is just going to roll in, but you have to work to make it happen. Story 22. Ultrasound technician. While maintaining a neutral expression, we are often the first to detect a wide range of conditions including cancer, torsion, failed or ectopic pregnancy, fetal anomalies, kidney stones, blood clots, and appendicitis. We do this by placing a camera in all the small and hidden areas of the human body. Reflect on that for a moment. We frequently require physical therapy, chiropractic care, and orthopedic treatment. We strain our bodies by reaching and pushing, using non-ergonomic, repetitive motions. Unfortunately, much of this is caused by the need to complete exams within predetermined timeframes, often set by supervisors who do not perform ultrasounds. I love my job and working with people, but it is not just about taking fun pictures of babies. Story 23. All right, hear me out. This job does not pay a lot, but I have worked off and on in restaurants where dishwasher jobs are always plentiful. Let me tell you, a lot of people see an ad to work as a dishwasher and think they can just go in and wash some dishes while listening to music. Pretty chill, right? Wrong. It is called a dish pit for a reason. The work is hard. Everything in the restaurant needs to be cleaned, and that means the dishwasher has to touch everything at some point. Every cup, bowl, spoon, and more. Then you have your share of grunt work. Be expected to clean bathrooms or go outside to sweep. They might even make you prep and cook. Long story short, do not think a dishwasher job is just some easy money gig. It is hard. A lot of dishwashers quit the position for a reason. Story 24. Food trucks sell ice creams, pizzas, snacks, and more. Even when self-employed, it involves hard work, planning, and management of goods and equipment for a low financial return. Story 25. Real estate agent. Everyone sees the commission checks on television. But in my area, I saw a statistic that 2/3 of agents did 1 or 0 deals last year. Story 26. Professional poker player sounds great, but the reality is playing a large number of games for long hours each day and always facing the possibility that you will end the day with less than you started. Story 27. Being an influencer means anyone making 6 figures or high 6 figures is working nearly 24/7, has employees, and a stockpile of mental illnesses. Story 28. Trading and cryptocurrency media report news about big wins and significant losses, but many people lose the majority of their investment. Story 29. Security for a large building open to the public can vary greatly. Sometimes, I might spend a month simply monitoring cameras and assisting tenants or visitors by directing them to the appropriate floor for their business. Other times, I might have 10 consecutive shifts involving calls to the police to address trespassing issues. These range from a homeless person trying to nap on a couch in the entryway after being asked politely not to sleep, to a woman stuck on the 17th floor elevator yelling through the door that she intends to sue because she has been trapped for 3 minutes. The job is generally easy until it is not. Physically, it is not demanding so far, but mentally, some days make you want to yell at everyone you see. Story 30. Selling parts to body shops at the dealership is mostly straightforward, but it can be challenging to understand some of the people on the other end of the phone. At the same time, you need to navigate the parts catalog and interpret their terminology using synonyms to find the items they need. Then, you check inventory and place special orders as necessary. It is not the worst job by far, but certainly not as easy as most would think. Story 31. Making art. The number of times I've heard or seen people say, "It's just a drawing. It's not hard to do," whenever they are asked to pay for the art they commissioned makes me think, well, if it's not hard to do, then why are you seeking someone to do it? The answer is obvious. They want someone skilled, a skill that takes time and effort to master. Many think art is easy to do, so it is easy to make money from it. You can even see the number of people who use artificial intelligence to create art in order to sell it later. But true works of art demand skill, regardless of their complexity. Quality demands skill. It is not easy to make money from art because artists have to compete not only with those using artificial intelligence but also with people who believe it is so easy that it should be very cheap. Story 32. Real estate agent. Only 5% succeed after 2 years, and of that 5%, only 1% make enough money to live on. Good luck. Story 33. Landlord. It is not as passive as it sounds. Your experience really depends on your ability to screen tenants. Get a bad tenant or squatter, and you are in for a world of hurt and financial loss. Story 34. Being a mail carrier is not just strolling through the neighborhood. When you start, it is 12 days on duty for up to 2 weeks at a time, with 1 day off before going back to work. It is worth sticking it out, but it can be brutal. Cut them some slack. Story 35. Being a chief executive officer sounds nice, but most people do not understand or want to deal with the daily stressors. Before I get criticized, I am talking about the chief executive officer of small to mid-sized businesses, not the chief executive officer of a major insurance conglomerate where they make money by ruining people's lives. Story 36. Voice acting sounds like easy booth work until you spend hours on retakes, strain your vocal cords, and face endless auditions that pay nothing. Story 37. Growing and selling. You need sufficient capital to start with. The risk is high, and if you lose significantly. Story 38. Emergency room staff. Those places can get wild and busy at the same time. By the way, they had the best Christmas party outside of work. Story 39. Any remote job has the perception that remote work is easier and better than non-remote work. I used to believe this, which is why I primarily sought remote jobs and have been working remotely for over 2 years. There are perks such as avoiding traffic, limited interaction with coworkers, and no dress code. However, there are also downsides, including loneliness and strict rules about work hours and using a company computer, which confines me to working from home. This can be challenging, especially since I live with my loud parents again. Remote work can be almost as mentally stressful as working in an office, even for non-technical jobs. Story 40. Kindergarten teacher. Except they do not actually try it. They just complain about anyone making good money for doing it. Story 41. Being an airline pilot requires a lot of hard work and training. While autopilot performs much of the flying, it is still your responsibility to program it correctly and monitor it. When something goes wrong, your quick and appropriate response will determine whether you go home safely or end up in a dangerous situation. If you do make it home, your actions will be scrutinized by everyone. Additionally, you must constantly study for recurrent check rides, line checks, and your medical examinations, which occur annually or every 6 months. Your career could end with the stroke of a pen. Story 42. Chief Executive Officer. Only the problems your smartest people cannot solve end up on your desk. Many decisions are high stakes. Stress is constant. I did it for 10 years, 14 hours, 6 days a week. It was the hardest I have ever worked, not the easy job many tend to think it is. Story 43. People really need to think about why people get paid a lot of money in the first place. If everyone could do it, they would not be making that much money. There is no such thing as easy money. People only celebrate success and never really see the journey that led to success. Story 44. Dropshipping. People make it seem easy, but it takes a lot of research to find the right products before they become trends with many others selling the same items. It also requires luck to discover something before it becomes popular. Story 45. Being moderately successful as a musician is a small business. There is much more to it than jumping on stage, cranking up the amplifier, and playing with your friends. You need to devote time to learning and writing material, recording, rehearsals, coordinating schedules, dealing with promoters and venues to set up performances, managing travel if you do any touring, sound, lighting, equipment problems, endless marketing and social media, websites, handling money, taxes, dealing with rowdy and entitled people both inside and outside the business, and being a psychologist to other band members. Story 46. An officer on a cargo and passenger ship experiences modern slavery. Tax-free income plus little to no personal expenses while working sounds great until you calculate the hourly wage and realize that wages have not increased in years. Being an airline pilot sounds better from my perspective. Story 47. Given the number of Reddit users who think anyone in management just sits and collects $300,000 per year or more without any effort, I would have a hard time choosing anything else. Probably sales, again because most people seem to think it is only filled with people who are rich because they lie. Story 48. Advertising creative, especially in the early years. 60-hour weeks producing dull creative content that nobody cares about. Story 49. Amazon sales. I have given one-on-one advice to multiple people fresh off TikTok videos, and not one has ever followed through once they found out I worked more than 100 hours per week. Once you find your groove, that can come way down, but it took years for me to get there. The hard part that everyone thinks is easy is figuring out what to sell and finding those coveted niches. Margins are very tight unless you are in a specialized space, and most times, if you are simply selling a standard non-unique product alongside other sellers, you face an endless stream of people playing the 1 cent under game. Once they realize they can't make any money on the product, they then fire sale it to dump it, pushing the price down even further. They disappear and a new seller comes along to replace them. Returns wipe out extremely thin margins. I no longer sell many of the things I used to because of fraud and returns eating up everything. You have to keep searching for new products all the time to replace the ones that fail for any of a number of reasons, the most frustrating being when a manufacturer is tricked by Amazon into letting them sell it themselves and cutting sellers out. You get left holding pallets of product that is hardly movable on any other platform. Good luck if you try Amazon. I do not recommend it. Story 50. Any job that you have never worked looks easy from a distance. Cooks and chefs, for example. Anybody can cook a steak. Yes, anybody can cook one. But can you cook 25 at a time to the requested temperature while doing 10 other things and maintaining health and plating standards in a chaotic 100-degree environment? Story 51. Dog grooming. I tried to groom my doodle myself once and realized that the $100 to $200 price tag is money and time well spent. Story 52. Being a cashier involves more than just scanning items. It requires managing a line of impatient customers, handling price checks, and dealing with expired coupons simultaneously. Story 53. Being a genuine freelance artist, whether in design, writing, or performance, the actual creation is the easy and enjoyable part for those who have developed the skill. However, obtaining funding, submitting applications, networking, balancing tasks and time, and managing collaboration and production processes all require a great deal of stamina, patience, skill, and determination. Story 54. I totally understand this perspective, and honestly, you are not wrong. Being a small business owner is challenging. Executive dysfunction feels different when you are responsible for everything. I used to think the same way. I was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in 8th grade and spent years believing entrepreneurship was nearly impossible for people like us. Why would I voluntarily sign up for something that requires skills that ADHD makes hardest? But here is what changed my mind. I realized the 9-to-5 world was not built for ADHD brains either. Sitting in meetings I could not focus in, remembering tasks my manager gave me verbally, dealing with office politics, it was its own nightmare. The key was building systems first before even thinking about business. I spent about 2 years figuring out how to manage my brain, time-boxing everything, writing everything down, creating accountability systems. Once I had that foundation, entrepreneurship actually became easier than traditional jobs for me. I am not saying it is for everyone. Some people thrive in structured environments, and that is totally valid. But if you ever change your mind, executive dysfunction is definitely solvable with the right approach. I help other people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder figure this out through Scattermind now. Anyway, I just wanted to say your self-awareness is actually a strength, not a weakness. Most people jump into business without understanding their limitations and struggle hard. Story 55. Law enforcement officer. Always fun and games until your first fight. Once you get hit and your vision becomes blurry, that is when the real challenge begins. Story 56. Selling makeup and similar products. Pharmacy, Mary Kay, or whatever pyramid scheme is trending next. My girlfriend did pharmacy for a year and probably spent thousands but only made hundreds. Their products contain typos and misinformation. Story 57. In this thread, there are many highly upvoted comments listing jobs that no one thinks are easy money. Story 58. Big Four management consulting. People often say it is fluff and adds no value but do not see the 13-hour workdays, 6 days per week, all-nighters, constant travel, and more. Story 59. Teacher. Basically all the responsibilities of every job already mentioned in this thread. I am biased though. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.